So we did a piece about the 3 types of income. And in the piece, we talked about how there's ways to legally not pay taxes. And we got a comment, and I basically want to respond to the comment, and not in a negative way. This comment was left by Corey, and I just have such a different perspective than he did, and why I wanted to make the video. But this is in no way to attack you. We actually really appreciate the fact that you're leaving these comments, because I think anytime we can build a conversation up, we all come to a greater outcome of what we're looking for. So first off, thank you, Big Dog, for leaving this. Also, if you are not, we ask that you would subscribe to the channel. Hitting the like button, adding comments like this do a massive amount for our content getting out there. So we totally appreciate it. But I'm gonna bring up Corey's comment and then I'll respond after. But Corey, Penny Stock Supreme on Instagram, if you guys wanna check him out. He said, I think what people believe the real issue to be is large bonuses from the type of work like banking, obscene rates for cash they borrow for cheap, and investment banking. Mergers happen over only a few months and create huge compensation packages for execs and destroy the working class jobs. And rich people don't pay their taxes. They pay lawyers to shuffle funds around. All this while the real income value of the working class does not keep up with their basic needs and necessities, all while paying their taxes and debts. And really the reason I wanted to bring this up is because I actually felt I had a very similar view to you when I first got started in this. I just didn't have a great understanding of the tax code or something like investment bankers or M&A, et cetera. So I'm gonna talk about my experience up to this point, and maybe this will start the next conversation to happen. So I'm gonna touch on your first part. In your comment, you said, people with large bonuses and mergers happening only over a few months and receiving huge compensation packages, and that basically destroying the working class. So, okay, for sure, there's always gonna be people out there that do bad business, even outside of business. You have good people and bad people, right? I think that's more of a personal issue than it is a business issue. On the part of like mergers and acquisitions and kind of paying a group a ton of money in a short amount of time, that's something that we had experience in with St. Archer. We hired a group to help us with the transaction or selling to Miller Coors, and they worked with us for about 4 months, and they made a good amount of money. They totally did. But how we looked at it was, they're adding a huge amount of value to us. They are gonna help us in this process with packaging the whole entire company up, helping us negotiate our deal, which we thought we would end up getting more money because of them. So at least how we justified it, we saw the value in them doing that because that ended up leading to a higher purchase price. So we made more money. So of course we're gonna give you some money if that meant you brought us more money. So that was the value add play there. I think what you're actually, before I even go into that, talking about the working class part, when Miller Coors bought our company, they went on a massive expansion. So in that transaction, Miller Coors opened a ton of new jobs, and that affected the working class, but in a positive light, new opportunity. So I think that would be an example where I think paying the M&A made sense, and I think that benefited working class. I think the example you're bringing up is when there's a distressed company and you see maybe a larger company buying a distressed company and then dismantling it. I hear you there. I think when I look at that situation, I just look at a different group for being responsible for it. The group that comes in to buy it, remember, there has to be some incentive on why you would want to buy a distressed asset or a distressed business. So and I keep pointing up, I'm pointing to them as like the bigger group, right? Let's say the bigger group looks at a distressed company and goes, okay, I could basically fix everything you're doing wrong, which is probably gonna mean removing people and restructuring to get it to a point where the company is either profitable or desirable for a sell. That's their value add. I'm gonna go in, I'll do the work, but I'm gonna make money doing that, right? But you got to look at what the alternative is. If that person doesn't go and buy them, what is that struggling business's option? Filing for bankruptcy. You file for bankruptcy, one or two things are happening. It's going away and everybody loses their job, or somebody's going to buy them out of bankruptcy, and the same thing's going to happen. So I think I look more at leadership and the group that put that business into a distressed state, and I think there's faults you can find there as opposed to the group that's coming in and trying to find an opportunity in a company that's basically about to be extinct. This is the part actually I wanted to hone in on. And you had said something, the rich don't pay their taxes, they pay lawyers to shuffle funds around, while the working class can't keep up because they pay their taxes and debts. So whenever I hear about the rich not paying taxes, I thought that they were scamming the system. I thought they had lawyers that found some type of gray area which wasn't illegal, but wasn't necessarily clean, and that's how they were finding ways of not paying taxes. I thought it was similar to people who are paid in cash and don't basically show the government that they're making this money so they don't have to pay taxes. I thought it was some type of, like, I guess call it hustle. That is before I had an understanding of how the tax code worked and ultimately why the tax code's there. So I'm going to go into this component at least to shed light on how taxes work. First, you need to understand how the government views the tax law. And if you go back to the early days, government only taxed the rich. It was this idea that they had plenty of money to live comfortably, and then they could still afford to pay taxes and it wouldn't even really affect their lifestyle. That was kind of the beginning idea. Then what they realized after World War II, that the revenue created from tax law was a great way or a great tool to rebuild the economy, an economy hit by war. So they started taxing the middle class. And in that, they had basically tax incentives up until the point of basically the income they needed to live off of. And then all the excess income that would typically go to investments is what was taxed. And then basically what they started doing was look for ways that they can tweak tax code to see if taxpayers' behavior would change in doing so. So what they found is by changing a little component of the tax code, they'd see a massive behavioral change in what the taxpayer was putting money towards. So for example, if they put a tax incentive into investing in a business, they saw a lot of tax dollars go towards business. If they put a tax incentive towards oil and gas, they saw the taxpayer make a big push to put money towards oil and gas. So basically, they stopped just looking at taxes as a revenue build and looked at taxes as a way to drive economic growth in areas that they wanted. Are the rich finding loopholes in the tax code? No. They just understand that the tax code isn't just there to raise taxes. It's there to shape the economy. So think of it more as a roadmap on where the government wants to lead you, and the rich just basically listens to where the government wants them to go, puts money into those investments, and then they see a tax benefit because of it. And what's interesting is the tax code. 95% of the tax code is incentives. Only 5% of it is to raise taxes. So we have this idea that the government is just there to take our money. Well, what the actual tax law says is it's more about economic growth. They just want you to put money in areas that are going to benefit the economy. So I think that's a different way to look at it, as instead of thinking these guys are just cheating the system, all they're doing is just listening and putting dollars to where the government wants them to go. One thing to consider is a lot of times we feel like only the rich get to participate in things like tax incentive. Tax incentive is available for everyone. It just starts with kind of the education process. And there's a phenomenal book out there in case you want to start learning how this concept works. It's called Tax-Free Wealth. Now, there is the argument of you need to make some money to be able to participate in tax incentive. I'm totally with you there, but what we're focusing on more is the tax code and how to use it for your benefit, and what I think everyone needs to know, even from a macro standpoint, that will ultimately leave more dollars in our pocket. And that's really, at the end of the day, what we want. If we're gonna work our ass off for money, let's try and keep as much of it as we can. And that book will be a huge starting point in understanding and then using the tax code for your benefit.